You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
For making it back to Making Data Simple. Time is the most precious thing we have, and I appreciate you being here. I hope that doesn't make you want to drop off in any stretch. In fact, we thank you very much. I would hope that if you have any topics or items that you'd like to talk about, or if you'd like to be on the podcast, we do have an email you can reach out to, which is almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Today, I am here with Mr. Seth Dobrin. Seth is CDO, IBM Cloud and Cognitive Software. He happens to have a PhD in molecular and cellular biology. So, Seth, I may have asked this before, but I'm going to ask you again. Does this mean I have to call you Dr. Dobrin?
It means you can call me whatever you want, explicatives or not.
Oh, well, that opens up to a wide variety then. I appreciate that. Very good. No, this is like your third time, is it not?
I think so, yeah. I think third, maybe fourth. I don't know. You should know better than I am. It's your podcast.
Oh, yeah. Put it right back on me. I see. This is why I might set that thought, so we go head to head. I think it's your third. The last time we had you on, last time we recorded it may have been in January when we had you on, but it was last December. So we had a little bit of time since the last time we had you on. I think with the third, Liam, who's one of our producers here, he's listening in. He's always listening in. He keeps things organized. Liam, I think he's got to get a jacket. It's like the Three Timers Club. We had two timers, but the three timer definitely has a jacket. You got to send him something in the mail. Anyway, all right. So what's that?
I said I'll be looking for it.
All right. It'll be green. It'll be one of Tiger's old jackets that we reuse or something. All right. Hey, look, again, I think it was last December, so there's been a lot of changes in that short amount of time, and I think you took on a different role here at IBM, yeah?
Yeah. So just recently, I took on a slightly different role here at IBM. It's actually the role I was originally hired for. I just got distracted doing some other things around IBM.
So what's the role? Can you describe it to us?
Yeah. So the role is I'm Chief Data Officer for our cloud and cognitive software business, which is basically think everything cloud, software, and Watson, except Watson Health. And my role is a fewfold. One is to help our business, so cloud and cognitive software inside IBM, leverage data and AI to run our business more effectively and efficiently. I'm also responsible for making sure that we do a really good job of infusing AI into all our offerings. And I'm responsible for all things talent development when it relates to data science and AI within the business unit.
Nice. So, but the only thing is, I have to tell you that maybe you were doing the last job so well, I thought you were all of those before. And I thought you CDO of everything.
Yeah, I was doing it for a small part of the business, but I wasn't doing it for the larger business. And now that we kind of inherited or grouped together, basically a third of IBM, I don't have the bandwidth to do, three other things while I'm trying to be CDO for the business.
So the one thing that I would say that there would be a change. Oh, so look, I consider you Mr. CDO of all of IBM for that matter. So there you go. The one thing I think you did, that you did get rid of. I don't want to say get rid of, but you've given to somebody else, and as you moved on, is the data science elite team. And I felt like, you've got that set up, ready to go, helping customers make the transition and up the ladder from data to AI. Before we move into, because you came on here and that was one of your big areas that you were leading previously. Can you talk to a little bit about where you left it, what you created, what your experience was, and where you landed? Yeah,
so I've been at IBM for 2.5 years, and about 18 months ago, we stood up this team, as you called them, the Data Science Elite Team. And this was a team of what ended up being close to 100 data scientists, data science engineers, which are data engineers that focus on data science, data scientists who are experts in operations research or decision optimization, and some data viz folks. And the goal of the team is really to, like you said, to help our clients figure out how to efficiently and effectively leverage data science and AI in their business. And this primarily focuses around using a few, key methodologies. So one is design thinking. So how do you identify the use cases and the models to deliver those use cases? The other key part of this is leveraging agile methodology to execute the data science projects. So part of that design thinking workshop is really breaking down each of those models into a series of sprints that'll be executed with the client, and the with the client is a key important part. This is not a consulting activity. This is a teach to fish type activity. And the clients we engage with range from, some clients that are, super experienced and very good in this area, such as, JPMC, which they were on stage with me, I think. And to clients who are just starting to figure out how to get started in this space or build capabilities within their organization. So when we sit with these different types of clients, kind of different levels up the AI ladder, we focus on different things.
So if I was to net that out to three different things, you talked about models, use cases, secondly, agile methodology, and three, industry expertise. Is that pretty well a good summary?
It's a good summary.
Now, if there was, so I think those are three areas, obviously, you rallied behind. The data science elite team, one more question, and that is, we got a lot of clients out there that are trying to create their own data science teams. Having done that, having done it in IBM, no different than many of these clients are doing it. If there were three pieces of advice or gotchas or whatever, what would you give? What would those three pieces of guidance be?
Yeah, and in fact, many of our clients, when I talk about this team, say, how the hell did you hire 100 data scientists in less than a year's time, right? And I think there's a couple of factors to that. One is, you need to have a real solid strategy. So data scientists, really want to understand how they're contributing to the business, right? How are they contributing to the overall goals of, in this case, IBM, and so you need a good strategy. You also need to identify a leader for this organization who has a really good network. Because, most of this talent, while I had a great talent acquisition partner, most of this talent did not come through her fishing around. It came through my network and then the people that I hired, their network. And so identifying someone with a lot of experience and a lot of respect and a great network is really, really important. And then the third piece is, which people kind of scratch their head and say, how did you do this at IBM, is when you start interviewing for these roles, you need to demonstrate agility in that process and really determine upfront how you're going to go from first contact, so first part of the interview, to offer in 10 days or less. And I think if I had to pick three things, those are the most important three things. And then the other piece is you really got to focus on, and this is kind of 3B, if you will, you really got to focus on diversity, right? Because diversity is really important in these teams because they bring, a lot of different perspective and a lot of different experiences. And the best way I found to do that is not to mandate that you must hire, 50% of this group or 40% of this group. It's to make sure that the diversity you're looking for is represented in the candidate pool.
Look, testament to that, because we've had several of those quote-unquote diversity candidates that have been on the podcast itself, a testament to you looking around and representing the profile of our clients. But solid strategy, talent network, demonstrated agility in that process, if you will, and getting off, what you say, first contact to offer in what you say, 10 days? 10 days or less?
10 days or less, yeah.
And then the plus one is diversity embedded throughout that. Very good. Appreciate that. You built a good team. They helped my team a lot, so greatly appreciate it. I'm sure it was difficult to leave them behind, but you're just not really leaving behind. You leave them in good hands. So
yeah, it was, and we're going to do it again for our internal efforts. So that's all good.
All right, so that's not exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. I'm going to jump right in. I want to talk a little bit about auto AI and some things of that nature that I know you have expertise in. Look, here's the way I look at you, Mr. CDO. I'm going to affectionately refer to you as Dr. Dobrin now. And an expert in data science. You got practical experience. That's what I like about it because of your work at IBM, Monsanto, Marshfield Clinic, several others. But I want to start with this one question. And, I'm sure this is not anything you're prepared for, but, off the cuff, you helped me with a keynote at one of our largest insurance companies, which I greatly appreciate, by the way. You came in and did an hour-long talk. I did one the day before. It really helped me. And you came in and talked about data science and a lot of different aspects around it. And at one point in the dialogue, I was paying attention, as you can tell here. At one point in the dialogue, you were talking about how difficult it was to get started or what your learnings were. And I think you were talking about your own experience in Monsanto, and you talked about creating like 150 models the first year, something like that. I'm going to have you fill in the blanks. And then you asked the audience, how many models do you think we created in year 2? And I thought that was a good, engaging question. But I'm going to stop there before I answer that question because I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind, I thought it was a good story and it really characterizes the challenges in data science today. But if you wouldn't mind, if you remember that story, I hope you do. I hope you recall the pitch. But if you do, I'd like to hear it, and I think the listeners would like to hear it too.
Yeah, so I mean, if there's some critical piece, and this gets back to some of the unique challenges of implementing data science or AI in the enterprise, right? And one of the challenges that most people that come from academics or kind of Kaggle type competitions don't recognize is that, if you look back to like when I did my PhD, we would build a model, we'd test it, we'd write a paper on it, and we would put it away unless we were going to do another paper. It never really got deployed. And so you don't really think about that the whole point of machine learning is essentially it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to change the data so your model will stop working. And if you don't have a way to effectively monitor that model and automatically retrain that model, the point of that story was to talk about all of your valuable data science resources are going to get sucked into monitoring and retraining these models. And the end result of that is a few things. One, your data scientists are not going to be spending their time building new models, right? So they're not adding new value. They're just protecting the value you already created. B, this is not a job that is engaging or fun or interesting. And so you're going to start bleeding data scientists. C, the initial response to that is to start putting interns on it. So then none of those interns are going to come work for you because, you're not going to get your new talent pipeline built up because it's not interesting, fun, or engaging. And so the net of the story is, as you start implementing these problems on the back end of building your models, you need to figure out how you're going to automate monitoring and retraining.
Got that. Now, but could you continue a little further in terms of your experience of creating all these models? And then, again, going back to the question that you ended with, how many models do you think we created in year 2 after we created like 150 or whatever the first year?
Yeah, and many companies who are doing this for a long time have, hundreds or thousands of models, and they got to this point a long time ago. And what ends up happening is that, you start building all these models, you do a really good job of building, in this case, 145 models, and the 25 people that worked on those, and I'll give the answer here, developed no models the following year because they were spending all their time doing it. And that's a fairly consistent story if you talk to some of the more advanced client, Fortune 500 companies, especially in this space, is that you end up wasting these resources essentially, and then you end up having to find new resources because the people don't want to do this.
So the interesting thing for me, obviously, when I knew what the answer was going to be, but it really struck me that you create all these models. Here's the way I interpreted it. I mean, in listening to your entire pitch, in addition to what you just said, but you said, look, you created these 145 models. Oh, great. They're all set up. You start putting it into production. As soon as you do that, by definition, the models start degrading. Then you have, these folks, as you mentioned, these data scientists then they have to start maintaining models, and they're trying to, calculate data drift, all this stuff that's impacting the models. All of a sudden, they are not working on any more new models. They're trying to maintain the existing models that they have. And to your point, then all of a sudden they get disenchanted because they're like, this is not what I was hired for. I just don't want to get into maintenance mode. I'm here to discover and innovate, etc. All of a sudden, you're 2 years into it. Half the model, I don't know how many you remained in deployment. You could maybe answer that at that point in time. And it's almost like, it felt like that you're saying, hey, we almost had to do a do-over.
Yeah, it wasn't a do-over per se. Excuse me. It was, all the models remained in production. They just all had to be retrained, right? So the underlying models themselves were good. So there was no redoing. It was really an effort to understand how we could really do this well. And it ends up that, in order to do the monitoring, it's actually a simple data science problem, right? It's a logistic regression. You put some boundaries on it, and when the model needs to be retrained. The hard part is how do you automate the retraining, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that we at IBM and others have focused on. When you build a data science platform, that's got to be a key component. And then actually the other piece of that is, if the way you're deploying your models is you're sending these models over the fence to a dev team to rewrite them in Java or Scala, every time you retrain this model, the dev team's got to build a new API, right? And inevitably, when you toss that model over the fence, the developer is going to look at the code and say, well, this data scientist doesn't know what the heck she's doing, right? Because this code is so non-performant that we have to rewrite it. They rewrite it, and then they break the model, and then they say, see, I told you they don't know what they're doing because the model doesn't work, right? And so every time you retrain a model, you got to go through that process. And so in addition to automatically monitoring and retraining models, you need a way to automatically deploy these models, right? And preferably as an API. And the API should work regardless if it's a batch or real-time scoring.
There is the concept of AI for AI out there. In other words, AI designing for AI, AI optimizing AI, AI governing AI. Where are we really at? Can you give us kind of a litmus test here or something to give us some guidance?
Yeah, so I think there's a few levels of this, right? And we talked about a couple of them already. So one level is, how do we use AI to automate away these tasks that no one wants to do, like monitoring and retraining, right? That is probably was the first application that we had of AI for AI, right? The second task was retraining. So we applied AI to monitor, and now we apply AI to retrain models. So not just necessarily the hyperparameter tuning and optimization, but we can also today even start getting into what's the most appropriate new model you should apply to this if you need to. And now we've also talked about it with Auto AI. We've talked about automated feature development, automated feature extraction, automated feature engineering. And so and that is actually when you start looking at the actual process, and that's part of actual data science and machine learning is this feature development, engineering, and extraction. That is the bulk of the work that really goes into building a machine learning model, and that is now automated. And then we're also automating things like bias detection, transparency, so understandability and explainability, and we're also automating deployment. And so we've got that whole kind of life cycle automated. So that's a good kind of base of AI for AI. Now, there's also this other, probably more advanced piece of AI for AI, which is when will AI be able to develop net new math, right? And I think that's a little bit further out, and that's a much harder task to do. But with that said, that is something that IBM Research and Microsoft Research and places like MIT and Stanford are all working on, right? Because that's when a computer really can start doing some of the really difficult stuff that humans are doing today. I don't think we're going to get there anytime in the next 3-5 years, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if more than 5 years, but less than 10 years from now, we were starting to see the beginning of that.
Very good. And by the way, for the listeners out there, I am not here to pimp products, but if you search for IBM and Auto AI, it's a product I'm responsible for. And Seth has had huge influence. He's the expert here. And we've also got IBM Research behind it. Pretty proud of it if you'd like to get more information. So Seth, do you have a few more minutes? I know we're running long. I'll be very quick, but I wanted to ask you a few quick hit questions.
Yeah, I do.
All right. So before I restart, is there anything that was left unsaid that you want to make sure that the listeners hear before we move on? It seems like with you, Seth, I got to tell you, you're very easy to talk to. I think you've been in here on the podcast the most with 3 times. Like, why is that the case? And it's because you're so easy to talk to. I don't even get to all the questions I need to get to. So thank you for that. And sometimes we retread old ground, but I think it's good stuff. So again, appreciate it. Is there anything that you wanted to get to and you want to state before we move on?
No, I don't think so. I think we talked about, we touched on kind of that you need information architecture to do AI. We talked about the things that you need to do to prevent AI from becoming a scam. We talked about the fact that, AI isn't magic, right? Well, and I think there's another piece that you've talked about a few times in that when you start thinking about, really operationalizing AI, in the most interesting cases, you're not gonna build, train, and deploy the model in the same location, right? And so when you start thinking about hybrid environments, how do you build the model in one place and deploy it in another place? So a good example for this is, there's lots of data related to fraud in banking that's that you would want to use to train all over the organization. And to do the really interesting ones, you need to train it on a GPU-enabled system. But when you want to start deploying that model, you really want to deploy it where the transaction is happening, which in most cases in a bank is on a mainframe. And so how do you build your model in a cloud or on a GPU-enabled box and deploy it on a mainframe? And I think that could be a whole podcast in and of itself out.
Well, maybe we should do that. I just wrote that down. We'll have it because we know we're going to have you on again. Can you say anything more about IBM's approach to the GPU-enabled system?
Yeah, so I mean, IBM and NVIDIA have a partnership, and with our Power hardware and NVIDIA GPUs, we have a great system with our Power 9 system that outperforms any of the x86 platforms in terms of training and even scoring of models when you need to use a GPU system to score. And we've also developed something which is basically how do you parallelize deep learning. So how do you run deep learning models split them up and run them across multiple GPUs simultaneously so that you get better results. And obviously all of our tooling runs on either our Power 9 system or on Intel-based systems to leverage GPUs. And we have part of Auto AI is NewNets, which automatically builds deep learning models that you can deploy on GPUs as well.
Very good. We need to dive into that, but we won't do that today. Thank you so much. All right. So, usually with the normal listener, you're abnormal. I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
We do a lightning round. You know this, but I'm done with that.
Yep.
You've graduated beyond the lightning round. Now I'm going to do what's called this or that. This is a grown-up version of Would You Rather. And you gotta pick a side of the fence. You can't go, well, I like it both or whatever. You know, be a man. Just give me what you think what side you're on. All right? You ready?
All right. Yep.
All right. See, I'll start out easy. Are you a visual learner or a book learner?
Visual.
Visual. So you get into demos, you get into practice, and that's how you learn.
Yep.
Mac or PC?
Oh, Mac.
Yeah, that was an easy one. All right. Is it better to be a clicker or a coder?
Coder.
Now, I expected you to say clicker.
No.
Why do you say coder?
Yeah, a lot more flexibility, a lot more choice, and it really enables you to dig into some of the things that you can't do when you're clicking.
All right, fine. Got it. Python or R?
Python.
Would you be, if you had the opportunity, would you have an autonomic car? I mean, in other words, it drives itself, or you're always going to be owner-operator? I'm driving my own car.
I hate driving. I'll let a car drive me around.
Wow, nice. All right. Would you rather? This is getting crazy here, but would you rather? Should we meet aliens for the first contact? Would you rather meet a robotic, an AI alien, or an organic alien?
That's a tough one because aliens in general, just when you think about from outer space, they scare me, right? Because we're making the assumption that they're good intention, right? But are they?
If they're anything like the human race, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be Cortez and the Aztecs. That's what it's going to be.
And if they got here and we didn't get to them, obviously we know they're more technologically advanced than us. So I guess with that context, I'm going to say I want an AI alien because they're going to act more rationally than a non-AI.
We're going to have to debate that one. That's a good one over a bourbon. All right. So sticking with the same theme, Terminator as AI, or do you prefer The Matrix as AI?
I'm going to go with The Matrix.
Nice. All right. A little Keanu Reeves action. I got it. All right. A couple other ones just for fun. Index funds or mutual funds for you?
Index funds.
Okay. That's good. If you would say mutual funds, I'm going to have somebody on from the financial sector, and I'm going to debate mutual funds with them. So good. Vodka or gin? Or do you have a preference there?
Tequila.
Tequila. Okay. St. Louis or New York?
New York.
New York or Iowa? You lived in Iowa, didn't you?
I did. Iowa. Des Moines.
All right. Nice. All right. Baseball or football?
Non-American football.
Okay. I'll let you get by with that one. The last one, apple pie or apple crumbles? I got that from the producer. They wanted me to ask you this.
Yeah, crumbles.
It's unanimous, I got to tell you, because everybody on the Slack channel when we were debating this said crumbles. All right, very good, man. Thank you for playing along. I appreciate it. You're always great, and we will have you back on because we've still 3 times and we've only scratched the surface. So thank you.
I'll look for my jacket in the mail.
All right, and we'll get it to you. Thank you guys so much. And for the listeners out there, again, rate us wherever you listen to us, because I think we're about everywhere at this point in time. And again, if you have ideas, almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Reach out to us, and we'll hit you back. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcasts to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time, over and out.